Hi, this is Ali Arango of Little Guy CGI, and today I would like to show you how to combine a sculpted head with a sculpted body in Blender 2.79. So let's get started. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe programs or other 3D programs. Okay, what you see in front of you is basically I have two iterations of Blender open. They're both Blender 2.79. So this is Blender open here. Then I opened up another version of Blender and I have that version of Blender here. Again, they're both Blender 2.79. Recently, I had made two tutorials. One tutorial showing how to make a sculpted head. Another tutorial showing how to make a sculpted body. The purpose of this tutorial is to show you how to combine a sculpted head with a sculpted body. On the left hand side of the screen, you see there's the sculpted body. There's also some sculpted shorts, which are two different meshes. On the right side, you see a sculpted head, and this sculpted head is basically the main mesh, which is right here. There's also eyes, and then there's also sculpted hair. To combine these multiple meshes together, we need to have these meshes inside of one iteration of Blender rather than two. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to press Z. We're then going to select wireframe. You can also look to the bottom here and click here and select wireframe as well. What we're going to do is take our mouse, hover about here. We're then going to press B for box select. We're then going to left click and drag to select these different meshes here. When we did that, we also selected the light. So we're going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, we're going to left click on this light to deselect the light. I'm now letting go of shift. Okay, with these different meshes selected, I'm going to press Z, and then I'm going to select material to go back to what the view that we previously were in. So now all of these meshes are selected. So with them selected, I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to press C. And when I did that, this copy attributes menu pops up. I'm then going to select copy selection to buffer. So I'm going to left click there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on the top here so that this iteration of Blender is selected. And then with this version of Blender selected, I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to press V. So we can see our head mesh came in here now. So currently the display is set for only render. I'm going to unclick this. So you can see that when our head mesh came in here with all of the different pieces that make up our head mesh, they're still currently selected. So with those different pieces of the head mesh selected, I'm going to press M, and then I'm going to click here to move that head mesh to another layer. Okay, now that I have all of the different pieces of our different meshes in one iteration of Blender, I'm going to go here and then left click so that we can focus on this iteration of Blender right here. Okay, when you look here, these are different layers in Blender. When I brought in the pieces that make up the head mesh, what I did was I moved them to this layer right here. And if you look closely, you can see that there's a little circle there showing us that something is on that layer. So currently what we're doing is we're looking at these two layers here. On this layer here is our body mesh layer. On this layer here is our shorts layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, I'm going to left click here. So now we can see our head mesh here. And the way we can see that is because we have that head mesh layer now selected, as well as the other layers selected. And because it's selected, it's now visible. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. Okay, now we need to scale down the different pieces of our head mesh. We can do this manually just by pressing S. However, I happen to know that the size that I need I can get to by pressing S to scale and then 0.058 and then press enter to lock that in. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hover my mouse here. I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to press B. I'm drawing a zoom box, so as soon as we let go, we zoom into what's inside of that zoom box. Okay, if you look to the left, you'll see I have this display tab here. To make sure you have this display tab, go to File, User Preferences, go to Add-ons, and then make sure you have a check mark next to 3D: View: 3D Navigation. You can also put a check mark next to 3D View: Display Tools. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here to go to Front Orthographic View. Orthographic view is a view that you can use in 3D that's helpful for lining things up. That kind of makes your 3D objects look like they're 2D objects. Okay, we have the pieces of our head mesh selected here. I'm going to use this center point right here to line up this head mesh with this center line. And then I'm going to take the manipulator and I'm going to pull the head mesh up like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to go to the right view. So when we come to the right view, we can see that our head mesh is, not in the correct position. So what we can do is take the manipulator and pull the head mesh back into place like this. We'll click front. There we go. Front to go back to front view. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift in the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to zoom in more. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, what we need to do now is to change the shape of the bottom of this head mesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to click to make sure we're selected just on this piece of our main head mesh now. We're going to look to right here. We see this says View Global/Local. Currently, we're in global mode. Global mode allows you to see all of the objects that you are working with in Blender. I'm going to click here to take us into local mode. So I'm left clicking now. Now we're in local mode here. So here in local mode, we just can focus on the object that we are working on, and that's the object that we see. So I'm going to click here to go to edit mode. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to front orthographic view. We're going to press Z and then select wireframe. We can also select wireframe from right here. Here in Blender, we can select and manipulate objects by vertices, edges, as well as faces. You can select vertices, edges, or faces here. I'm going to click here to select faces. I'm then going to hover my mouse here, press B for box select, left click, so I can select all of these bottom faces right here. I'm then going to press Z to go to solid view. You could also click here to go to solid view as well. Okay, so with this selected, the reason why we really can't see our face here is because there's such density to this mesh. Okay, so what we want to do is hold Alt while holding Alt, press O. This turned on our connected proportional editing tool. We want to basically thin this out. Think of yourself as placing, like, if you ever have played around with Legos before, think of this as almost like turning the base of this neck in, as in like putting a Lego head piece onto Lego body mesh. That's not what we're doing here, but kind of a way I think that can help as far as dealing with this. So we're going to press S to scale. We see that circle there. That circle shows the area of influence for our connected proportional editing tool. Connected proportional editing tool allows us to move more than one vertice, edge, or face at a time. Because it's connected rather than the regular proportional editing tool, it will try to focus on mainly what we have selected. So what we're going to do is press X so that we're scaling along the X axis. We're going to roll our mouse wheel to decrease the area of influence. So I'm going to left click there like that. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to turn to the side. Now I'm going to press G and then Z. I'm going to shrink my area of influence down like that. And then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here to go back to front view. Then I'm going to click here to go to object mode. So now here in object mode, we can see our mesh again. I'm now going to click here to go back to global view. Okay, what we want to do now is left click on our body mesh. We're then going to click here where it says view global / local to go to local mode for our body mesh. Okay, so we're going to click here to go to front view. We're going to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Letting go of shift, I'm rolling the mouse button to zoom in. I'm holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan down again. Okay, if you look to right here, we want to go right to about here, and basically we want to remove this part of the mesh that was our kind of like our stand-in head. So we're clicked in on here. We're currently in local mode. We're going to click here and then click here to go to edit mode. Now we're going to press Z to go to wireframe mode. The reason why we come to wireframe mode is so we can select what we see in the front of the mesh as well as the back of the mesh. We are currently selected on face select. That is good. This is connected proportional editing is currently turned on. We don't necessarily need that, so we're going to press O, then press O again to turn off that connected proportional editing tool. We're now going to hover here, press B for box select, left click and drag. And we want it to aim towards the bottom of the chin. So what we're going to do is press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to press Z, select solid view. We could also click here to go to solid view. We're going to click here and then go back to object mode. So now what we're going to do is we're currently in local mode. That's why we can only see the body. We're going to click here, which is view global / local, to go back to global mode. Okay, what we're going to do is hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to click on our main head mesh. We're going to click here and then go to edit mode. So we're in edit mode. However, we're also in global mode. Because we're in global mode, we can see our body mesh that we're not working with because we're in global mode. So this is useful for what we're doing here. We want to push this in a way so that it is more inside the body. We're going to click on options. Currently, if we push here, this will not affect this side because we don't have a mirror modifier on this. What we're going to do is, I just clicked on the options button. We're going to put a check mark here next to X mirror. So in a way, this kind of acts like a mirror modifier. And we're going to use this now. So we're going to also click here to go to vertice select. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to press C for paint select. We're going to paint this right here. We're going to right click. Because we have this X mirror option turned on, this side should be affected as well. We're going to take our manipulator and pull back. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to push to the side some. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press C for paint select. Click here, right click to get out of paint select. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Then pull back like that. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We have this area right here. We're going to press C for paint select. We'll select this area right here. And basically what I'm trying to do is this right here, when we blend this together, this will fit in well once this is joined with this. However, this seems like it would be better to push this in. So that's my basic thought right now. So with this selected, I'm going to take the manipulator and push that in. I can see that little amount of geometry there. So I'm just going to take this and push that in. I'm now going to press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Now I'm going to click here and then click here to go back to object mode. Okay, let's click here to go to front view. And I'm just looking to see that for the most part this is centered. And I think it looks fairly good. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Now we want to actually connect these meshes together. So we're going to click on our body mesh here. Then we're going to click here to go to our modifier panel. Okay, so what we want to do now is click here and then left click on Boolean. So now we have this Boolean modifier added to our body mesh. So see where it says operation here? We want to click here and then change this to union. Okay, so what we want to do now is look to where we see object here. We want to left click on this eyedropper, left click on our head mesh, and then left click on apply. Okay, when you look here, you can see there's an outline now going around the body as well as the head. Typically, when we use this method, when we click on the head, there's a leftover head mesh. I'm just going to pull this to the side like that. So what I'm going to do is press X to bring up our delete menu. I'm then going to left click on delete to delete that head mesh. Okay, when you look at the face, it kind of looks like it has cracks in it. We're going to click on our now combined mesh. We're going to click on materials tab, then our textures tab. Previously, we had set up for this to have what looks like skin pores. We did that for the face as well as for the body in the tutorials where these meshes actually came from. Because they're now joined, this ambient occlusion that we're using for to give the appearance of skin pores is no longer correct. So that is right here. And then with this selected, what we can do is press the X key here. So now when we took that away, we no longer have what looks like cracks in our face anymore. However, we also don't have the appearance of skin pores anymore. Okay, so to get that skin pore look back, we're going to hover here, left click and drag this to the side. We're going to click here, then click here to go to the UV/image editor. Okay, now with our combined mesh, we're going to click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to click here to go to phase select. I'm then going to press A to select everything. I'm then going to press U to bring up our UV mapping menu. I'm then going to select Smart UV Project. And then we're going to keep the default settings and then click OK. So Blender, it's going to take a while to calculate this. Shouldn't take too long, but it's going to recalculate our UVs for us, it being Blender. And it takes a while because we are dealing with so much geometry. Okay, there we go. Okay, what we're going to do now is hover our mouse here, roll our mouse wheel back. We're going to click Image, New Image. We're going to change this to 2048 for the width. Change the height to 2048. For untitled, we'll left click here, name this New AO. And then we'll leave the rest of the settings default. Then we'll click OK. So that's what we have there. Now what we're going to do is click here, go to object mode, and then here in object mode, what we're going to do is we're going to click on our render button here. We're going to scroll down to where we see bake. We currently have this set for ambient occlusion. If this wasn't set for ambient occlusion, you would just click here and then select ambient occlusion. When you look over here for this image, we want to click image and then click save as image. We have our new AO here. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here. Just clicking here made a new folder. I'm going to name this textures. I'm going to click here to go inside of textures. I'm then going to click save as image. So from doing that, now our image is safe. When you save images in Blender or save images with Blender, you have a regular Blender file. You also have a texture file. And these are two separate files that you need to have. Often if you open up a Blender file from a save file and you don't have your image file saved from your texture, often for me that image file is no longer there. Typically when you use ambient occlusion, use ambient occlusion to enhance the look of shadows. We're not using the ambient occlusion in that fashion here. In this way, we're using the default settings of ambient occlusion and the graininess that it tends to have. We're going to use that graininess to give our character the appearance of having skin pores. Okay, with that being said, we're going to click Bake. Okay, now we can see our ambient occlusion right here. When you look here, you see where it says image, it has a little asterisk sign right there. That asterisk sign lets us know that we really should save this file. So we're going to click image, and then we're going to click save as image. And then we're going to click save as image to save over our old ambient occlusion image file. Okay, so what we're going to do now is click on our material tab, then our texture tab. We're going to click here. We're going to click new. The type that we want is image or movie. When we look here, if we click open, we could search for our ambient occlusion file that we just made. We're going to click here, and then here we can see that Blender has it available for us to be selected here. We're going to left click to select that ambient occlusion file. Okay, so with that selected, we're going to scroll down. We're going to take away this check mark next to color. We're going to look to where we see geometry. We're going to put a check mark here next to normal. Okay, that setting is too high, so what we're going to do is click here, and then we're going to change that setting to 0.02, and then press enter to lock that in. So now let's zoom in. Holding shift and the mouse button to pan. And now it looks like we have our skin pores back. Holding shift and the mouse button to pan. I'm going to click here and try changing this to 0.04 and then pressing enter. Okay, I like 0.04 a little better. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I was working my way through this process before, and I liked 0.02 better for now, though I like 0.04. You can adjust this to where you think this is best. So with that done, I'm going to left click here, drag this to the side to get rid of that other window. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan down. Okay, you can go into scope mode and use the various brushes to smooth up the area where the head is connected to the body. This technique, I just held shift and the middle mouse button to pan. This technique is a fairly easy and fairly quick way to join a sculpted head mesh to a sculpted body mesh. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel and reshare them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.